Well, howdy YouTube, Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. Today, part 2 of Do I Need a Dedicated Media Server? Well, stick around to find out. So in the previous video, I toyed with the idea of, do I need a box in my rack dedicated solely to Plex and MB? And I told you I have some special circumstances that you may not have. The main thing I play all my videos on are my Roku devices, and I've got an NVIDIA Shield here in my office that I stream on. And I use subtitles because I'm getting older and hard of hearing, and I don't like missing dialogue in videos because, it just leaves things to be desired. So, and I had this epiphany. Well, why can't I just load Plex and MB on one of my high-end Ryzen 5 2600 units? Because I mainly watch videos during the evening time with the spouse. I very seldom watch during the day, and even if I do, if I put it on a machine that is not dedicated to Plex and MB but is allowed to do other things as well, i.e. a workstation, couldn't I have the best of both worlds? So that's what this video is about today. Okay, you see that box right there on the floor behind me that I'm pointing to. That contains a Gigabyte B450 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi motherboard, and that unit has a built-in black backplane on it. And my thought was, I'll just use that workstation, right? Because I very seldom use that workstation behind me. It's like for emergency or overflow, or if I have somebody that comes over and needs to use a workstation. So it sits there mainly not in use. So I thought, I'll just put my Ryzen 5 2600 CPU in there, some RAM, and I'll load Plex and MB on it, and bing bang boom, everything will be fine. But then I realized I had 4 hard drives that need to go into there as well, and that unit will not allow me to put that drive cage in there that I'm so fond of, that 4-bay drive cage. So what I did instead was I took my Unraid server and I converted that into my Media Center PC server / workstation. So what I'm able to do now is run Plex and MB on this, and it still has enough horsepower to where it can be used as a workstation. So it's not just sitting there devoted to one task in the rack, and I get to use it as a workstation out here as well. So let's go see how I did that. Alright, so here's the box that I had Unraid running on, and as you can see here, I'm reminding myself to put the USB key in a safe place because Unraid doesn't like it when your keys get broken, so I'm going to put this somewhere safe. So I'll just go over, what I had in this. This is that thermal take case. I think I paid $30 or $40 for it. And this is the 4-bay drive tray tower. I forget who makes that as well. It's not important. Anyway, it allows you to put 4 3.5-inch hard drives in the space that would normally be taken up by 3 drives. So it's a win-win. And allows them to be hot swappable, which is good if you've got drive failures. You really don't need it in a server, but I just like having it. Keeps you from having to crack open the case and remove the drives individually. So these drives are going bye-bye. And basically what I'm going to do is gut this machine and put new components in it. So I'll let you, and you can see we had a couple of different video cards in here. I think we had a GTX 950 and a 650, or a 640 and a 650. And I had a Gigabyte motherboard in here with an i7 processor that was running Unraid. Now Unraid isn't going anywhere. I have other plans for Unraid. But for now, I needed this box in order to build what I was going to build. So I'll shut up now, and you can watch me rip this thing to shreds. So I got to thinking while I'm testing this Asus Prime X570P motherboard. You know, I bought this board in haste, and haste makes waste, as they say. I assumed incorrectly when the Ryzen 5 3600 processor came out that I needed an X570 chipset in order to support that CPU. That was not the case. You only need the X570 chipset if you're going to be using PCI Gen 4. Well, I don't have any PCI Gen 4 video cards, and as you can see, I'm still stuck on stupid on SSDs, so I don't even have any need for PCI Gen 4 NVMe because I'm not using them. So that makes this board essentially a waste of the money I paid for it, but you know, live and learn. Now, my thought was, I'm still waiting on AMD to RMA that Ryzen 5 3600 CPU, and I thought, well, I'll wait and I'll reserve this board for the Ryzen 5 3600 and then use this as my daily driver because it's got the whiz-bang PCI Gen 4. But you know, the CPU is not really that much faster, and frankly, the Aorus Pro Wi-Fi board I have has more from what I desire out of a board. In other words, it's got a USB-C, it's got USB Gen 3.1 and 3.2, so it really doesn't make any sense for me to wait for that Ryzen 5 3600 to come back when I could just pop the Ryzen 5 2600 in here in the Corsair RAM I have that I know is good and use this as my workstation, my secondary workstation. But in addition to that, I got to thinking, if I put this in my Thermaltake case, the one with the 4 hard drives in it, that I was using for Unraid, I could then transfer my hard drives from my home NAS into this unit, load Windows 10 Enterprise on here, load Plex on here, and load MB on here, and this thing with the RX 560 video card should handle everything. You know, I don't use that many streams on Plex at once, and when I do, it's in the evening time when I'm not working, so yeah, I could reduce my server load because right now I have my Ryzen 5 1600 dedicated to Plex and nothing else. And I would sure as heck love to see this board go into service. Plus, this board will fit in that Corsair or Thermaltake case where it won't fit in the tall white tower that was over here. Well, it will, but the Aorus Pro Wi-Fi has that funky backplane on it, and that won't fit in the Thermaltake case, if that makes sense. So why not? So let's get that unit built, and we'll see what kind of results we get out of it. All right, in the end, it was a pretty tight fit, but I managed to get everything in there. So what I did was I put the so here's the motherboard. It's the Asus Prime X570P, and if I haven't explained it already, I'll explain why I went with this board in this unit, because frankly, this board fit into this case. The Aorus Pro B450 Pro Wi-Fi would not physically fit in this case. Otherwise, I would have gone with that. But anyway, I'm not going to have... I bought this board, like I said, in haste, and I was in a hurry because I wanted to get on the AMD Ryzen 3 bandwagon. And turned out I didn't need this board. A B450 would have worked fine. But I'm going to make lemonade out of lemons, so put this board in there, paired it with the Ryzen 5 2600 and 16 gig of Corsair DDR4 3200 RAM. It's working like a charm. I've installed Windows 10 on here. I've also I've got an SSD drive in there. I've got a AMD Radeon RX 560 video card in there. It doesn't require any additional power, so it's a low power card. This is going to be my secondary workstation now, across from my main rig. This is also going to have Plex and MB on it. You know, I get to thinking, why dedicate a machine to Plex and MB? These Ryzen systems, especially this Ryzen 5 2600, it's got 6 cores, 12 threads, lots of RAM. It mostly sits over at this other workstation not doing anything. So We mainly watch TV and movies and that kind of thing in the evening, not in the afternoon. So I could even be doing video editing or compressing or cross-compiling or editing video or whatever I need to do on this unit, and still Plex and MB will run just fine. I also host a few users. I let them use my Plex server, family members and that kind of thing. The tricky part was, though, getting this to install, because I wanted to also move my drives out of Prometheus. If you remember Prometheus, it was that 4U rack case, and I wanted to be able to move those 4 drives into this Thermaltake case right here, as you can see. And I was able to do that by the skin of my teeth, because the back part of this unit comes to right here, and you can see where the motherboard power connector is. So I had to pull this unit forward and then feed all the cables behind it and then push it in place and lock it in place with screws. But long story short, it came out just fine. So now the next thing I want to do is finish putting this back together and then get it back on the floor, get it plugged in, and just have it start working. I've been testing it for about 3 or 4 days. It's been working fine. I haven't had any trouble. All my problems with Plex and subtitles and MB running have gone away now. So if you give Plex and MB enough power and a good enough video card, they'll handle anything you throw at it. Now, I could have just left all my storage centralized on my Synology DS918 Plus, but as I've told you before, I like to keep my work stuff separate from my personal stuff, my home stuff. It's just good practice. So I had those, 2 or 3 4 terabyte drives and a 3 terabyte drive that I had in Prometheus when it was my media server. So I just moved them over into that. There it is, right down there on the floor, sitting there pretty as you please. It was a tight fit getting everything put into that Thermaltake case, and that Thermaltake case is really, it's a good case, but it's kind of cheap. The metal's thin on it, you know. In fact, right now, it's got a rattle on it that just annoys the hell out of me. So I gotta, it's probably the rear fan on that thing is what's causing the rattle. So, but I'll figure that out. But it just made more sense to put that as a workstation running Plex and MB. It's got that RX 560 video card in there, which is more than powerful enough for Plex and MB. And now I can get multiple streams going. I can get subtitles going. I don't have these little random hiccups and lockups that I was having before. And my world's a happier place here. Now, I asked a lot of you for your input and what you use, and I found the comments very interesting. It ran the gambit from, I use a very minimal system to I use a system more powerful than yours. And so, it's not a one-size-fits-all. But in my situation, do I need a dedicated Plex media server or a media server in my home network? And my answer is, yeah, kinda. But it's, it's as powerful as these damn PCs are becoming, or have become, multiple CPU cores and lots of RAM, it just, it doesn't make sense to dedicate one unit in my situation for maybe 2 or 3 streams at a time on Plex and MB when this machine behind me can handle it fine. And I've got it to do other things like, if I need to edit a Word document or Excel spreadsheet, or if I need to do some video editing, it's there and it's available for me. It really doesn't impact MB and Plex at all. And it allows me to centralize all my storage for my Plex and MB onto that box and then back it up onto other devices on my network. So for me, it's a win-win. Now, the other thing I came to find is a lot of you don't use Plex or MB at all, and that's fine too. There are different ways to skin this cat, but I like the ease of Plex and MB. I'm an old time, I used to use Windows Media Center, for crying out loud. That's how old school I am. And I used to play all my video and stuff on my Xbox and my Xbox 360 because the Windows Media Center was a native app on that. If you ever used Windows Media Center, it was pretty slick the way it worked. And best of all, it had live TV. Plex and MB have live TV, but I really don't use the live TV on them. I have a TiVo that I use for that. And, the spouse is quite happy with the TiVo, so I've gotten so old, I don't change things that the spouse is happy with. It just tends to make my life a lot easier, if you know what I mean. So there you go, YouTube. We hope you found the video entertaining and informative. As always, please Leave us a thumbs up down below. Your comments down in the comments section. Donate if you're so inclined. We take PayPal. We take Patreon. And if you notice underneath my videos now, there's a join button here on YouTube to where you can actually join up here for $2 a month. It's a reoccurring charge. It helps support this channel, and it helps us to get other products in for review and to test and to play with and that kind of thing. So along those lines, I want to give a special shout out now. At the end of every video, I'm going to personally thank the subscribers on YouTube. So I have 2 new subscribers that are also now members. They've joined for the $2 a month club. And one of those is Michael R. 1965. I want to thank you very much for helping to support this channel. And Paul O'Shaughnessy. Hope I got that right. They both joined at the $2 a month club, so I appreciate it very much. Your continued support is needed and greatly appreciated. So don't forget to come and see us again, and don't forget that we will see you on the other side.